Good evening and welcome. This is Primetime News on TV1 for the Newsfirst team. I'm Jamal Ratnayaka. Here are your headlines for tonight.
ECT crisis intensifies. The terminal will not be given to anyone. 100% of the ownership will be vested with the Sri Lanka Ports Authority. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa certifies. India demands East Container Terminal in no-holds-barred statement. A proposal to solve the ECT crisis put forward to the Cabinet. Report of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry probing the April 21st attack handed over to the President. Myanmar's military seizes power in a coup after detaining leader Aung San Suu Kyi and ruling party politicians. Parents who protested at the Colombo fort demanding a solution for cut-off marks of the Grade 5 scholarship exam clash with police.
On to your top story for this evening. India demands that Sri Lanka abide by the terms of the Memorandum of Cooperation signed between India, Japan and Sri Lanka. This response from India came hours after Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa assured trade unions that the Sri Lanka Ports Authority will continue to fully own and operate the East Container Terminal of the Colombo port.
The statement released by the Indian High Commission in Colombo reiterated the expectation of the Government of India for expeditious implementation of the trilateral Memorandum of Cooperation signed in May 2019 among the governments of India, Japan and Sri Lanka for the development of the East Container Terminal with participation of these three countries. The statement adds, quote, "The commitment of the government of Sri Lanka in this regard has been conveyed several times in the recent past, including at the leadership level," unquote. The Indian High Commission also pointed out that the Sri Lankan cabinet also took a decision 3 months ago to implement the project with foreign investors. The Indian High Commission stressed that all sides should continue to abide by the existing understandings and commitments. The Indian government has no right to influence the decision taken by the people of Sri Lanka. Through this statement, the Indian High Commission has flexed the might of the Indian government. I would like to remind India that they no longer can play old games with us. At one time, they signed the Indo-Sri Lanka Accord and forced themselves upon us. They sent the Indian peacekeeping forces. They ransacked our land. They took the port of Kankasanture. This is how they are going to lay their hands on the East Container Terminal of the Colombo port. The Mahasangha and the patriotic people of this country united to protect this East Container Terminal. India has shown its power as a big brother to Sri Lanka. We would like to ask our leaders not to bow down before India. Don't bow down before America. Sri Lanka must be saved from this Indo-American agenda. This statement issued by the Indian High Commission this evening is an affront on the sovereignty of Sri Lanka. This raises serious issues on the freedom of the people in Sri Lanka. We condemn this statement and we would like to force this government to respond to this statement. The report of the Cabinet appointed committee to discuss the East Container Terminal and the Cabinet paper on that matter was tabled at the Cabinet meeting today. This was confirmed to Newsfirst by Secretary to the Ministry of Ports and Shipping, UDC Jayalal. The Cabinet meeting this evening was chaired by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa.
Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa said the East Container Terminal at the Colombo port will be operated 100% by the Sri Lanka Ports Authority. After a meeting with trade union representatives, the Prime Minister released a statement and said the East Container Terminal of the Colombo port will not be sold to any country and will not be handed over to any country for administration. The meeting held at Temple Trees is attended by 13 of the 23 trade unions. The Prime Minister assured the trade unions that under the policy against the sale of state resources to foreign entities, the East Container Terminal at the Colombo port will not be handed over to any other country. The trade unions requested the Prime Minister to give them assurance in writing to this effect. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa responded by saying that during his political career spanning across 50 years, he had solved many issues highlighted by trade unions and, in the process of doing so, had never given any undertakings in writing. The Prime Minister stressed that he will be true to his word.
ක්‍රියාමාර්ගය ආරම්භ කරලා අද මේ වෙනකොට හතරවන දවසේ අපරෝඩ ක්‍රියාමාර්ගය ආරම්භ කරපු දිනේම අපිට ලැබුණ ඔබතුමන්ලාගෙන් අපිට හොඳ පිළිතුරක් ලැබෙනමයි කියලා ඒ තොරතුරු ලැබුණ මොහොතේ ඉඳලා වැඩි පරිශ්‍රමයක් ගත්තා ඒක අපිට ලිඛිතව ගන්න මොකද අපිට ඔබතුමාලා වචනෙන් විශ්වාස කරන්න පුළුවන් වුණාට අපිත් එක්ක අනිත් පුරුෂ සමිතිය 23ට
අපේ නම් ඉතිහාසික හොලක් කියලා නැහැ.
ඔබතුමාලා
අපි කිව්වොනම් ඒ වචනේ දිය. ඔව් මේ දිය. ඔදාකට අපි කියලා දීලා නැහැ කාටවත්. ඉච්චරයි අවුරුදු අනාගත දේශපාලන ඉතිහාසය. මේකෙදි දෙන්න පුළුවන් දෙන්න කතා කරන හැම දෙයක්ම ක්‍රියාත්මක වී ඒකයි අදම නැත්නම් කැඩවන්න ඕනේ නැහැ.
කොහොම වුණත් බටහිර පර්යන්තය කියන එක ආසියානු සංවර්ධන බැංකුවේ නායකෝන් දේශවලට අනුව
Under the conditions laid down by the Asian Development Bank, the West Container Terminal must be privatized. It is thanks to the President that the Ports Authority got the East Container Terminal. When the matter came before him for endorsement, he refused to sign the agreement to privatize all 3 container terminals. So based on that, all of you can come here and even claim ownership over the East Container Terminal because the atmosphere for that was created. But according to the loan agreement, the West Container Terminal must be given to a private investor. So that investor will run the port, there will be no change in that model.
වෙන ආයෝජකයෙකුට ඒ නායක විසුමට ප්‍රකාරව දෙන්න ඕන. ඒකට කවුරු හරි ආයෝජකයෙක් ඒ තමයි ඒක දුවන්නේ. එතකොට ඒකේ මොඩල් එකේ වෙනසක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
දැම්මම ගිහිල්ලා වැඩ පටන් ගන්න.
Get back to work as soon as possible. I know how hard it is to maintain services at the port right now because of what happened during the past few days.
ඒ නිසා මේ සර්විසස් ටික ආපහු යන්න පුළුවන් අපි ගාව තියෙන.
හෙට දිනේදී මේ
As we get an official statement on this matter from the cabinet, we will call off our trade union action. But if the cabinet paper contains something else, we will not call off our trade union action. We fought for one thing. Only the East Container Terminal. Other factions had several other goals to achieve. Therefore, their struggles have not ended as they have some goals that still must be achieved. So, I make a kind request for them to continue their fight. We have already won this.
After the meeting with the Prime Minister, trade union representatives visited the Dhamma Centre at Bauddha Lokamavata and called on Venerable L.A. Gunawansa Thera. We need to make it clear that we only have to halt the second phase of our fight temporarily. I hope that the patriotic ministers of the cabinet, who often represent us and respect our ideology, will speak during the meeting. The Honourable President was a frequent visitor to this temple. We can wipe away our tears later, but first we must wipe away the tears of our citizens. The entire nation is in distress because of this port issue.
මේ වරායේ ප්‍රශ්න හින්දා මුළු මහ ජාතියම කම්පාවටපත් වෙලා වේදනාවෙන් ඉන්නේ.
වෙන පැත්තක් දීම වෙනුවෙන් තමයි මේ කතාව අරන් එන්න තියෙන්නේ. චෝදනාවක් එනවා.
ඒක එදාට බලාගමු. මේක අපි දන්න දේශපාලන කොටස් වැඩි උනන්දුවක් දක්වනවා මේ බොරදියේ මාළු බාන. ඒකින්ද අපි
While trade unions were given guarantees regarding the East Container Terminal today, Minister Vimal Veeravansa said that there is nothing wrong in implementing the promises of Vistas of Prosperity and Splendor policy statement about the West Terminal of the Colombo port. Our Vistas of Prosperity and Splendor policy statement does not say that the East Container Terminal will be developed jointly with anyone. About the West Terminal, we have mentioned clearly that we will join with the private sector and other parties to do so. We have received the mandate for it. In collaboration with another party, be it India, the West Indies or China, to develop a terminal under the build-operate transfer system. There is no problem in developing the West Terminal together with any party according to the BOT model.
BOT කියන මොඩල් එකට ඕනම පාර්ශවයක් එක්ක එකතු වෙලා බටහිර පර්යන්තය සංවර්ධනය කිරීම ගැටලුවක් නැහැ.
If you look at President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's policy statement, it clearly states our policy for the Colombo port. If a certain section of the port is going to be developed with a private company in a manner that does not result in the sale of our assets and does not affect future generations of the country, there is nothing wrong with it.
During the Jatika Mehevara program telecasted on TV1, Port Trade Union spoke about the new proposition that has come up regarding the West Terminal of the Colombo port.
රාජ්‍ය නිවැරදි ක්‍රමවේද පාවිච්චි කරමින්
We are not opposed to the government starting the operations of the West Terminal using the right method. If they are taking decisions with the right intention for the country with regard to the West Terminal, we are willing to stand by it.
අපි හක බලන් ඉන්නවයි කියලා.
මං හිතන්නේ ඒක කිසිම සාධාරණත්වයක් නැහැ.
I think it is not acceptable at all. This has been the final result of the plan the government had from the day they assumed office. There was a vision the government came in with. According to that vision, they will not sell anything or lease anything. That is why people voted for them. When the West Terminal is sold or leased to a company like Adani, they are contradicting themselves. The government planned and understood that the unions can be united in this matter, but that the unions can be divided over other issues. That is the West Terminal issue. It is not right for a government elected for 5 years to decide on a policy that will impact the generations that are yet to come.
සම්පත් කුණු කොල්ලේට විකුණලා දාන්න.
ඔක්තෝබර් මාසේ 22 වෙනිදා
A cabinet paper was passed on the 22nd of October. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa also raised his hand for it. Now with the rise in the voice of the public, there is a revolt in this country, and what we see is only a temporary setback. In their blood now, there is an addiction to sell assets. They are of the stance that if not the East Terminal, at least the West Terminal must be handed over. That is how addicted they are to selling our assets. They can smell the scent of commissions. Therefore, with the massive protests against the East Terminal, they are now preparing to bypass the East and go to the West. They are also trying to get guarantees from the trade unions saying that they will not oppose the involvement of India in the West Terminal. The trade union movement is not ready to accept that. The trade unions affiliated to their party may raise their hands in favour. The intention here is to come to power and sell assets and earn some money for themselves. It is not to build this country. Regardless of the East, North or the West terminals, these are national assets. We will continue our struggle to protect our national assets.
ජාතික සම්පත් වලට එරෙහිව අපි ගෙනියන අරගලේ අපි ඉස්සරහට දිගටම ගෙනියනවා.
Now they are saying they will save the East Container Terminal and sell the upcoming West Container Terminal. How can they say that? Are these our national resources or private properties of the Rajapaksas? The people of this country took to the streets and sacrificed their lives in the past to free us from the Portuguese and the English to safeguard our national resources. They took to the streets to free us from the Indians as well as our stubborn leaders. We would like to tell our leaders, if they are trying to sacrifice our national resources, be it land, sea or air, we will fight against it to our death.
Following the satyagraha at the Colombo fort, the Mahasangha arrived at the entrance of the Colombo port and engaged in a protest along with several trade unions and civil organizations. The Chief Secretary of the National Bhikkhu Front, Venerable Wakamulle Uditathero, expressed the following views at a protest held today under the theme "Stop Selling the Colombo Port" under the guise of seeking investment.
The Janata Vimukti Peramuna and other political parties as well as civil society organizations engaged in a number of protests around the country today. The protests were in opposition of the proposed sale of national assets. The protest was held in the Kurunegala city centre for over an hour today.
It does not matter which jetty is being sold. These people were opposed to the selling of the southern jetty, and we as trade unions will stand against the sale of any terminal. We will not agree to the sale of any of our assets.
A public petition was signed in front of the National Water Supply and Drainage Board premises in Ratmalana.
The port is something that belongs to all the people in the country. Therefore, as water board workers, we express our opposition to the sale of the port.
Another protest was held near the Colombo Town Hall demanding that national assets be protected.
We are totally against the sale of our port, which is our property. The whole of the political left is against this and considers it a betrayal. We are requesting the government take other measures. The Ports Authority has finances and technology. We can use it to do this ourselves. We can then reap the rewards ourselves.
Multiple other protests were held in a number of other areas today as well.
The government has now taken a step back. With the protest staged by the public, the government is now saying that they will not give away the ECT to the Adani Group. This is a lie. They still have intentions to do so. We need to make this clear. We will not allow the sale of a port under the guise of an investment. This port is like the heart of our nation. We will not allow the Indians, Japanese or anyone to take it away from us.
Transparency International Sri Lanka has raised concerns on the lack of transparency surrounding the proposed investment in the East Container Terminal of the Colombo port. In a statement, Transparency International Sri Lanka states, quote, "Key among TISL's concern is the non-compliance with provisions of the Right to Information Act, which specifically outlines the duties of the subject minister in charge of the project to communicate all information to the public in a timely manner." Unquote. The statement adds that the concerns around the lack of transparency with regard to this project are further exacerbated by reports that the investment will be undertaken at least in part by the Adani Group of India, which has been implicated in several allegations of improper business practices, fraud and corruption globally, with alleged links to tax havens in the Cayman and British Virgin Islands. TISL points out that these links and allegations were further explored in the investigative report Digging into Adani, featured on the current affairs program Four Corners, which was aired by the Australian Broadcasting Corporation in October 2017. TISL is of the view that the involvement of the Adani Group is a factor that necessitates enhanced scrutiny of the proposed investment by the relevant authorities, including the Financial Intelligence Unit of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka.
In more headline news, the final report of the Presidential Commission appointed to probe the April 21st attacks was handed over to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa earlier today.
The examination of evidence by the Presidential Commission appointed to probe the April 21st attacks ended recently, and the members of the Commission, including the chairperson, handed over this report to the President. This Commission was appointed by former President Maithripala Sirisena through an extraordinary gazette on the 21st of September 2019. The examination of evidence by the Commission commenced on the 31st of October 2019. Since then, it recorded evidence from 457 witnesses in 640 instances over the 214 days it was in session. The Attorney General's Department, which aided the investigation, has provided 2,230 documents as additional evidence to the Commission.
Now, News First will continue to apprise you of all the latest happenings in Myanmar. Meanwhile, let's start off and take a look at news from here at home. A protest was staged in Colombo today demanding that the cut-off marks for entrance to schools of the Grade 5 scholarship examination. The protest was attended by several parties, including parents of students and teachers' unions.
The protesters point out that even students who got very high marks at this year's scholarship exam have not got an opportunity to enter a leading school in Colombo. They marched to the Presidential Secretariat from the Colombo Fort Railway Station, demanding authorities to look into the matter and called for a reduction in the cut-off marks. The police intercepted the protesters opposite the Presidential Secretariat and informed them that they can stage their protest at the agitation site. A heated exchange broke out between the protesters and the police.
Before you meet the president, first see if the minister is there and meet him, meet the secretary to the ministry, and then you can come here.
අපේ දරුවත් එක්ක ඇවිල්ලා මම මේ ජනාධිපතිලා කණ්ඩායම වඩින පොලිසිය කඩතලුවයි කියලා. මගේ කට දාන්න. මගේ දරුවා දැසනීප වෙලා. දැන් අපි ජනාධිපතිතුමාට කියනවා ඇත්තටම ගම්වල ගිහිල්ලා හුදකලා ප්‍රශ්න විසඳන්න නැතුව මේ ජාතික මට්ටමේ විතර ජාතික සෞඛ්‍ය ප්‍රතිපත්තියක් දාපු අධ්‍යාපන ප්‍රතිපත්තියක් අතට මේ ප්‍රශ්නට විසඳුම් දෙන්න කියලා.
10 of the protesters were given the opportunity to attend a discussion with an additional secretary at the presidential secretariat.
Today, the additional secretary to the presidential secretariat, Mr. Srinath, as well as the secretary to the Ministry of Education, came for the discussion. The recruitment process will be suspended for a month. Increase the number of students in schools with grades from 1 to 13 from 40 to 50. Increase the number of students in scholarship classes from 45 to 50. Then every school will be able to accommodate more students, about 100 or 150. Reduce the cut-off marks accordingly. We have won our struggle today. If we do not get a fair solution within this month, we will be forced to take action again. If you reduce the cut-off marks by 1, how many children does that impact? It could be 100 or more. It could be even 50 or 60. That will affect the class sizes. So I asked for another month to address this issue in all 373 national schools to see if they can accommodate students if the cut-off marks are reduced by 1.
The cut-off marks in schools within Colombo city is around 191 to 193. The teachers' unions and parents are requesting the government to reduce these cut-off marks of popular schools within Colombo to some extent. I think it is a fair request. Now these are the people from outstation areas, the ones who voted for this government. We urge the government to be humane and to listen to the plea of your voters. The commission was appointed to mete out justice. This commission has been given judicial powers. Why are they appointing commissions like this? Gotabaya Rajapaksa is angry that cases are filed against him. His family members are angry because cases were filed against them and their corrupt activities were exposed and they had to spend time in remand custody. So they want to take revenge from those who filed cases against them. They have now brought this new commission to specially target the JVP who were involved in exposing their corrupt activities. Their intentions are wrong. Their aim is wrong. So we believe that these cases cannot be heard by these commissions. This commission that signed at the end of this report was not a presidential commission appointed to probe political victimization. It was appointed to commit political victimization. None of these people have the ethical right to file cases against us or revoke our civic rights. Before they file any cases against us, who is Gotabaya Rajapaksa? He is a person who was saved from his cases because of presidential immunity. I would like to ask Gotabaya Rajapaksa to leave his immunity aside and face his cases. He did not face those cases. Without facing his own cases, he is coming and investigating us. Does he have a right to do this? No, he does not. The number 5 fighter jet squadron of the Sri Lanka Air Force celebrated its 30th anniversary today. The squadron was formed on the 1st of February 1991 with the induction of 2 new FT-5 jet trainers in Katunayaka under the command of squadron leader H.D. Abevikrama. In the same year, the fleet was enhanced by the acquisition of an FT-7 trainer and 4 F-7 Air Guard day fighters. The number 5 squadron has contributed its efforts promptly and has conducted over 600 flying sorties during the humanitarian operation. Squadron leader P. Gunasinghe, Fleet Lieutenant I.J.I. Vijay Tilaka and Fleet Lieutenant S. Hendavitarana were the first pilots in the Sri Lanka Air Force history to break speed of sound and are considered as pioneers in the supersonic fighter age. The squadron has produced over 25 frontline fighters to face the brutal enemy counterattacks delivering tons of explosives to weaken the enemy's morale to fight back during the humanitarian operation. Regional plantation companies have submitted a revised wage proposal to remunerate estate workers up to 1,108 rupees per day. The revised proposal was a result of a settlement negotiated with the assent of the minister. However, trade unions are yet to agree. This resolution will ensure that workers will earn in excess of 1,000 rupees demanded and will finally be rewarded for increased productivity. The 1,108 rupee daily wage is achieved in the following manner: basic wage 725 rupees, price share supplement 50 rupees, EPF, ETF 108 rupees and an attendance and productivity incentive of 225 rupees which has been reintroduced. A fixed daily wage model will be applicable for 3 days a week. On the rest of the days, employees will be remunerated based on one of two productivity-linked earning models, one where employees will earn 50 rupees for every kilo of tea leaf plucked, the other being the revenue share model where employees can become entrepreneurs. The leopard is a tactful hunter in the wild and also the apex predator in Sri Lanka's jungles. But sometimes even the most ferocious of creatures tend to be taught a lesson by its very own prey. We leave you tonight with footage obtained from social media which is said to have been recorded within the Yala National Park. The footage shows the relentless unity of a herd of buffaloes to fend off an attack by a leopard on one of its young. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Jayamal Ratnayaka along with our sign language interpreter Brian De Cruz. Good night.